everyone. So I decided to do this video where I'm talking about 10 Christmas movies I recently watched. Now I started watching these in November so I can go and post this for December. And I wanted to do mainly stuff that I found on Netflix. There were most of these movies I found were on Netflix, but there were a few that I decided to watch elsewhere, especially ones where there was a few that were rewatches for me. Like one I usually pretty much watch every year, and there's like another one that I watch mostly every year. Sometimes I skip it, but I wanted to talk about just some Christmas movies, things that I liked, if there was something I didn't enjoy, I'll talk about that too. But the first one I ended up watching was Hot Frosty. Now this is new to Netflix. This one, I loved it. It was so sweet. It was so sweet. It was so, the one thing I want about a Christmas movie is I want it to be happy. I want to be happy. I want to the magic of Christmas, whatever it is, I want that there. I want it implemented into the story, So this one here was really cute. So I say I like Lacey Chabert. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I've loved her ever since she was a little girl. She's a little girl. She was on Party of Five. She was adorable. I've loved her, pretty much anything that she's been in. My favorite, of course, is Mean Girls. I love her in there as Gretchen Wieners, So she was good in here. I liked her in here. So she plays Kathy. She owns a restaurant in this small town. And so she's a grieving widow, and she accidentally brings a snowman to life. I said it's kind of similar to the movie Weird Science, but with a, snowman. I said transforming him into a charming, shirtless hunk named Jack. So he's played by Dustin Milligan. And I said through his innocence of the world around him, the snowman helps Kathy laugh, feel, and find love again, just in time for the holidays and before he melts. So I said, Jack reminded me so much of Olaf if he were turned into a real life man. He did. He was so happy and innocent of the world and discovering new things. And it just brought some sense of joy into Kathy's life, because, like I said, she's a widow, She lost her husband to cancer, and, watching somebody deteriorate from something like that, it just, it changes you as a person. And so she's still grieving, her husband, and doesn't really want to you kind of can't get past certain aspects to the grieving process. Her husband was the handyman around the house. And so when you see at the beginning, you see how she's really kind of ignoring different issues. Her heating is not working right. Obviously the furnace or whatever it is down in the basement isn't working correctly. So she keeps ignoring it. She keeps meaning to do it, but she doesn't do it. And so you'll see her walking around her house wearing a blanket and stuff. And I'm like, girl, get your heating, get your heating fixed. And so she'll do that, and then she goes off to work at her job, which like I said, she owns this restaurant in town. And there's other things that she kind of keeps ignoring, there's this hole in the step, and then also the roof is leaking, so she hasn't called anybody to get it fixed and stuff, and she keeps putting it off. Obviously it's something that's going on where she can't kind of get past certain things, so it's causing her to ignore them. And so one night, after she went and talked to this older couple that they own this I guess you'd say it was almost kind of a Goodwill. It's basically a used clothing store in town. She ends up talking to them. She went and brought them a sandwich, and I thought that was really sweet that she brings their lunch. And they were talking to her about their relationship, the couple's relationship, and how they got together years ago. And she went and told Kathy's character, Kathy, that, oh, well, here, use this scarf, kind of like get back out there, kind of like get back on the horse kind of thing, and, find someone you can find comfort in. And so that night she sees the snowman that it was used obviously as a competition, like snowman, making competition. And the one that did the snowman, it was like the sculpture of this really good looking guy. And so she has a scarf around her and she's like puts it around him and she goes, here, you need it more than I do. And that night he turns into, a human. So I said I liked how even though it's a happy Christmas story, you could see that Kathy didn't want to jump back into a relationship right away because she was still mourning her husband. They got to become friends and things started to shift after that. I said this movie was happy, also some sad elements, and it was funny as well. I said I loved it and gave it 2 thumbs up on Netflix, so I gave it a 10 out of 10. And yeah, it basically, it does have some little, kind of sadder elements to it, but it actually wasn't like super sad. There's a way of like bringing sadness into a scene without it being like, oh my God, I'm bawling my eyes out kind of thing, There was sadness, obviously, because you hear that, her husband did die of cancer, and, she's obviously dealing with, the loss of him still. But, with Jack's innocence, and him discovering different things, she was helping him, like when she's the one that ended up finding him the next morning. And when he came alive, he was naked, of course. So he ended up accidentally streaking, for like this older couple. The wife did not mind. I'll just say that. The wife did not mind. The husband was the one that was like, oh, this person was streaking. And I'm like, dude, you didn't have your glasses on. You didn't see anything. You did not see anything. You're blind, okay? So, that was really cute. And then, Lauren Holly was actually in this movie, and I was like, oh my God, is that Lauren Holly? And I was like, holy shit. So Lauren Holly, she's an actress, been in like different things. I loved her in Down Periscope and, Dumb and Dumber, things like that. She was in there. And it was funny because she's playing like, this, a seasoned lady, she's playing a seasoned lady. And so she's driving her car down the street and she sees that Jack is up on the house. He's obviously trying to fix Kathy's roof. And so she's driving and she ends up like hitting like a snowbank or whatever it is. It was funny. I laughed at that. And then, because he would go and like, Kathy told Jack that, hey, we need to keep you like kind of like under the radar because the one police sheriff, the guy who was like the main guy, I think was his name Craig Robinson, I think it is. He's been in all kinds of movies. He was in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, he was like the bouncer in The 40-Year-Old Virgin. He's been in all kinds of like Seth Rogen movies and things like that. So he was playing like this serious, sheriff where he's like any like little misdemeanor in the town, he was like, I'm going to take care of it. I'm the law kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, chill. So, Jack ended up accidentally breaking through the, used clothing store and stole some clothes so that way he wasn't naked. And so when Kathy finds him the next morning, he's wearing like this old like jumpsuit and it says Jack on it. So he ends up taking on that name. And so Kathy's like, well, she finds out, she goes, did you break into that, clothing store? And he goes, it was an accident kind of thing. And so she feels bad for him. So she's like, well, I don't want you getting arrested because like you don't know anything of this world. So she ends up trying to keep him in her house. And so he decides he wants to help her. So he starts watching programs, and these programs basically teach him how to do different stuff, like teach him how to cook, teach him how to like do home improvement and things like that. So he starts to fix up her house and help her out. So Lauren Holly is the one that ends up catching him like on the roof, trying to, he's trying to fix the roof. And so she ends up like hitting like a snowbank and he's like, oh, are you okay? And he comes running down, like kind of like he's, there's different, like, I guess this is the term that you'd probably want to use. Like there are people who talk about in the romance community, romance books, people talk about different like male characters. Like there's ones that are called cinnamon rolls, and then they also have ones that are called golden retrievers. I would say he's probably more of a golden retriever because he's very like helpful. He tries to be helpful. He tries to be, you know, as accommodating as he can. Like I say, he's very innocent of this world. It was a scene in the movie where he was like, he goes, "Oh, I bought this stuff," and she goes, "You bought it with what?" And he's like, "Oh, it was free." And she's like, "Wait a minute. Did you use a website? You used my computer?" She goes, "It's not free. You used my credit card." So I thought that was funny because he was very like innocent in the world. Like I said, it reminded me of like a real life Olaf. And so the more she kind of like teaches him, the more he kind of like teaches her too about like, you know, having hope and, you know, love and different things like that. And it was a really cute movie. Like I would definitely like rewatch it. That's why I said like I gave it like a 10 out of 10. It'd be something I definitely would rewatch again because it was a very sweet romance, you know? So the next one I ended up watching, this one here was like less happy, definitely more depressing and sad. So I ended up watching The Noel Diary. This has Justin Hartley in it. He plays Jack Turner. This woman named Barrett Doss, and she plays Rachel Campbell. And then you've got Bonnie Bedelia in here and James Remar. So Jack Turner's a popular author that lives by himself with his dog Ava. He gets a call from his mother's attorney that his mother had passed away. So he goes home to his childhood home to go through her things. I said she was a hoarder. She hoarded a lot of stuff. He runs into his mother's elderly neighbor, Ellie. That's played by Bonnie Bedelia. And I haven't seen Bonnie Bedelia in years. Not since like Die Hard, actually. I was like, what, have I seen her in anything else? I mean, she's obviously been in other movies or shows or whatever it is, but I just had never seen them. And I was like, dang, it's been so long since I've seen her. And so it was nice to see her in this movie here. And so she was playing the elderly neighbor that knew Jack when he was like really little. And so while he's cleaning his former home, a woman named Rachel shows up looking for her birth mother. The last known address was at that home. So her mother was the nanny. Jake decides to help her out. So he asks his elderly neighbor, and she said that Jake's dad would know more, like his dad lives in Vermont. This here, it's obviously somewhere in Connecticut, I think. Something like that. I think it's somewhere in Connecticut. And so Jack doesn't visit his dad much because his father left when he was very little. So he kind of has this hate relationship with his father. And so Rachel discovers her mother, obviously lived there. And so she wants to discover her mom. And so she basically talks to Jake, and Jake's like, telling her, he goes, why don't I help you? Because he clearly he thinks she's cute, obviously. He's attracted to her. And so he decides to help her. So he enlists the help of, the neighbor. Neighbor's like, hey, go and talk to your dad. And so Rachel basically was going to leave by herself to go there. And he's like, no. He goes, I'll come with you. He goes, I need to have a talk with my dad anyway, because, obviously they need to hash out their issues, So they travel to Vermont. So on their way there, they stop off at like different little inns and stuff like that. One of them they go to is called Maple Falls. They stay the night. So Rachel finds out that he's an author. So that night she goes into the bookstore and actually finds his book, because he's a pretty popular author. And so she ends up reading it that night. And so they talk about the book and stuff like that while they're driving. So they make it to his dad's home, and Scott, his father, who's played by James Remar, he apologizes to Jake for leaving, and Jake walks away like he's just still angry about it, because it's like, yeah, you're gonna be angry because your father left you. And he had said, like, his father told him, like, oh, I sent you letters, I sent you letters, and tried to call you on the phone and different things like that. So father was making the effort, but obviously the mother was like not, you know, helping in that situation. So they end up asking Scott, you know, his father, about Rachel's mother. And so you come to find out that Rachel's mother, her name was Noelle, and she had obviously gotten pregnant when she was about 16 or so. And so her parents were kind of like these really religious parents where they, you know, the fact that like she sinned and all that stuff by, you know, having premarital sex and all that. So they didn't want to financially help her. So she ended up being taken in by Jake's parents when they were younger. And so the Noelle ended up becoming their babysitter. And so Jake doesn't really like, he kind of like has a little bit of memories, but he was very young when she was, you know, his nanny. And he had an older brother, and unfortunately his older brother ended up dying in childhood because he climbed up on this tree and he slipped off the tree and fell. And so there was like, I guess there was sadness in that because you find out like, you know, his brother died in childhood. It broke up the parents' marriage. You know, especially like a child's death, that can really like take a toll on people's marriages. And so that, like I said, that part was sad. And then like finding out like the poor young girl, you know, like she was living with them and stuff like that. And, you know, the way she had to deal with it, you know, like she was trying to help the family, like grieve, you know, this child that was gone. And obviously she must have grieved the child too, because, you know, when you become a nanny or babysitter, you start to, you know, form a you know, like a relationship with these kids. You know, you end up becoming their like little friend, you know, or like a mentor, you know. And so I'm sure that probably hurt her too, you know, when the little boy died. And then after he talks with his father, they go and they head on back to Connecticut because the dad ended up saying like, hey, you know, I actually have something from her that she sent to me years ago. And it was basically like a wedding invitation that, you know, her mother Noelle ended up getting married. And so of course her last name changed. And so they end up going back to Connecticut. And then, you know, things happen from there. She ends up like, you know, they end up sleeping together. And the thing I didn't like about it is that she had a fiance at the time. And for me, I felt like if you're in a relationship with this person and you're not sure you want to get married with them, what's the point of still being in a relationship with them? And especially when you can go and sleep with this other person. You clearly, you know, don't need to be with this person anymore. So I didn't like that aspect to it where they, you know, they slept together even though she's engaged, you know. And then she basically leaves while he's still sleeping and leaves him like this Dear John letter. And then the other thing I didn't like about this movie was the fact that all this time she's searching for her mother, and then she ended up finding like this diary, and throughout their trip she ends up reading these journal entries of, you know, her mother when she was pregnant and stuff. And she actually named her daughter because she knew it was going to be a girl. So she named her daughter Angela. Well, obviously, when the adoptive people adopted the baby, they named her Rachel. So, Rachel decides to go back home to her adoptive parents, who I think definitely baby her. I felt like she was definitely like spoiled, you know? And she decides not to meet her mom. And I was like, this whole fucking time, we're on this trip so you can discover your mother. And then at the end, she doesn't visit her mom. I'm just like, so Jake ends up finding Noelle. And Noelle now is, you know, she's older, she got married, and she works as a nurse, like in this old folks home, you know, nursing home. And so she sees Jake again, and so they reminisce and they talk about, you know, all this stuff, you know, with like his brother and everything, and the thing, you know, she had talked about, you know, what happened, you know, afterwards and all that stuff and different things like that. And so he had said how he met her daughter, Rachel. And so she was like, oh, her name's Rachel, and okay. And then she's like, well, she was crying, obviously, because she was upset and everything. And then she had said, like, well, if Rachel ever wants to meet me, she goes, I'm open to it. And I was like, it kind of left it like, kind of like, ended that way, and I just didn't like it. I would have preferred if she would have seen her mother again, and, having that, or seeing her mother, for the first time. And, forming some kind of relationship. Like, it's obviously, it's not going to be the same as like the adoptive parents, because they're the ones that raised her, those are going to always be her mom and dad. But, having her biological mother around, I think would have helped too, getting to know, your biological mother, and everything like that. And, I think it would have been a little bit better for her, instead of feeling like this indecisiveness that she kind of felt like throughout the, movie and all that stuff. And it just was a bit depressing. And so I'm like, it's a Christmas movie, but I was like, it's kind of sad. I'm like, I don't really like sad Christmas movies. I prefer more of like upbeat and happy. So this one here, I was like, I gave it like a 4 out of 10. It had a lot of issues for me. And like I said, the one was like, after all this time of her traveling, she doesn't meet her mother ever. And I'm like, really? I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah. I was just like, yeah, no. So I wasn't really too fond of that one there. And it's not something I would watch again. It's just, eh. So the next one I ended up watching, this one just recently came out. It's called The Merry Gentleman. So we have the character of Ashley. She's played by Britt Robertson. Luke is played by Chad Michael Murray. And Chad Michael Murray, I used to watch the show One Tree Hill, and he was in there. And I love that show. I thought it was good. And I hadn't seen him in like how many years, and then he kind of like popped up, here and there. And so he recently started popping up again. Because I also liked him in Freaky Friday, the one with that had Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. I liked him in there too. It was funny. But yeah, I like him. He's a good looking guy. And him with his shirt off, I'm like, yeah, sure. Like he's in his 40s. He's like around my age. I think he's in his 40s. And I'm like, still looks good. Yep. Smash. So yeah, to me, it was like, you have the characters of Ashley. So Ashley's a Broadway dancer who returns to her hometown and finds her parents' struggling bar in need of a better marketing campaign, and starts up an all-male dance review called The Merry Gentleman. So while she is teaching the men how to dance, she slowly falls for the local handyman named Luke, played by Chad Michael Murray. So I enjoyed this movie. I loved how there was also Maxwell Caulfield in here. Now, if anybody knows who Maxwell Caulfield is, he's an English actor that was in the movie Grease 2. Handsome. That dude is so good looking. He also was in Empire Records. He played Rex Manning, so to me, I'm like, I think Maxwell Caulfield's a good actor. I really enjoy him. And so here I was like, he's a silver fox. He is a silver fox. He's gotten older. You could see like he's gotten older. Still good looking. Smash. I'd still, yeah. So I liked Maxwell Caulfield in here. He had a very small part in the movie. I had to rewind the scene with him in it because I was like, wait a minute, was that Maxwell Caulfield? Wait a minute, hold up, back up. So I had to back up the movie, and I was like, that is him. Oh my God. I'm like, well, does he just have a small part in here? What happens is, so she's teaching them how to dance, and her sister, which is played by Marla Sokoloff, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Her sister Marie has this boyfriend, and the boyfriend decides to go and do the dancing too, to kind of like help out the parents. It's like it's basically like a music place. I can't remember what the heck it was called. Something, the music room or something like that. But the parents, obviously, they sell liquor, things like that. But it was kind of going downhill. And so they wanted to save the parents' business. So her sister's boyfriend decided to go and dance too. And he ends up injuring his ankle. The rest of the team that ends up being a part of this, like Chad Michael Murray's dancing too and stripping off. Also, the only thing they're really stripping off is just their shirts. Nothing any more than that. It's not Magic Mike where they're like almost naked and stuff like that. So, they basically can't perform without another person. So Maxwell Caulfield's character decides to, what was his name again? Did I have it right there? Yeah, his name was Danny. So Danny decides to like, hey, I'll help you out. I've been like watching you guys rehearse. I know the dance moves. So he goes and he starts dancing with them. And I was like, oh my God. I was just watching it. I thought it was funny. I'm like, did I love it? No, it wasn't something I loved because I will say like, I'm not really a huge fan of the actress Britt Robertson. It depends on the movie for me. And to me, I felt like her character was just waiting for the next thing to happen, And like toward the end, like the people who basically let her go because of her age wanted her back because the person who ended up replacing her quit, and so they couldn't hack it. And so she was going to go back to New York to go and continue to dance. And I was like, you're going to leave these dudes behind? You've been teaching them this. You started them off with this. If you can't dance professionally anymore, then if you can't teach, She was teaching them how to dance. So I was like, with her like leaving, I was like, come on, girl. I didn't like that aspect to the movie. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Britt Robertson. It all depends on what she does. Like there was another movie I liked her in. I think it was like a teen movie where she was a teenager and then the other guy was a teenager. I don't remember the name of the movie. I'd have to look it up. But I liked her in that. But, as she's aged, I think she's like in her 30s now, maybe. I don't know. She still has like this child face, this kid face, which she can't help. But she kind of has this kid face where she just looks kind of immature as a grown woman, So it all depends on the stuff. Like, I really just wasn't a huge fan of her in this movie. I just felt like she didn't fit for the role. And the romance was okay. But I would have preferred, like, Chad Michael Murray with someone else, honestly. Someone else, I just felt like they just didn't mesh well, as a couple. So I said I enjoyed the movie. I said I loved how Maxwell Caulfield had a small part in this movie. I had to rewind a scene with him in it because I wasn't sure if it was him at first. He's still good looking and a silver fox now. So I gave it a 7 out of 10. It was decent. It was pretty good, but like I said, there were a few things that I was like, wasn't really a fan of. I wouldn't, I don't know if I'd watch this again. Maybe I would watch this again. I'd like Chad Michael Murray in it. I did like him in it. I thought he did better with his, acting and all that stuff than her. I thought he was a better actor there. He's a stronger actor than she was. I don't know. It's something about her. I'm not a big fan. I don't know. So the next one I ended up watching was Best Christmas Ever. This was okay. I gave it a 5 out of 10. So we got Heather Graham in here. We got Brandy Norwood, Jason Biggs, and Matt Cadino. He's like a Hispanic dude. So the synopsis is, when a twist of fate lands Charlotte and her family at her old college friend Jackie's house only days before Christmas, Charlotte seizes the opportunity to prove her old friend's life isn't as wonderful as it seems from her holiday newsletter. This one was sad. And it made me cry. And I was just like, I want happy. I don't want sad shit. So I thought the movie was okay. I did feel like Jackie, Brandy Norwood's character, was a bit too perfect and a bit annoying. But at the end, my thoughts changed a little on her because there was something that gets exposed in the movie. So there is a talk of a child's death in here. This one here had it to where Heather Graham's character, Charlotte, she definitely is one of those people where she feels like she could do more with her life, so she kind of feels stuck in this rut with this company that she works for. And so her husband, I'd say, is a bit of a not super responsible, because she's the one that's pretty much got to handle the finances in the house. Jason Biggs' character, he was one of those people where he likes to go and fix up houses and stuff, which can be financially beneficial, but you got to have the money to be able to afford it, you know? You got to have the money to afford it. You got to have the money to fix up the house. And then when you go and sell it, it obviously has to be more than what you bought it for, and more than what you how much it costs to fix up, you know? You got to know that you're going to get a good amount of money for it, you know, in order for you to buy like another house and all that stuff and keep doing the same thing. So she was the one who was like the financial person. And she had told him, like, no, I don't want you buying another house and then you're fixing it up, because, you know, we need to have money, you know, as a, you know, backup just in case, you know. And so they're kind of dealing with a little bit with their marriage. And so her son ends up putting the GPS directions in, and she thinks they're going over to her sister's house for Christmas. Come to find out, they end up stopping off at Jackie's. Now, Jackie's, like I said, she's super happy, super always like Christmas and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And, you know, super happy and everything. And of course, you know, doesn't shock me that Brandy Norwood's in a movie and she sings in it. And I'm like, that's shocking, because she's a singer. So, throughout the movie, Charlotte, you know, Heather Graham's character, she several times wants to show, like, you know, is there something that, you know, she's doing, like maybe she's faking these like things that they do and everything like that. And then you come to find out that it was Brandy Norwood's son ended up dying. And so she came up with this like charity for him that she would do every year. You know, every year she's doing this charity. But she also, like, I guess, worked at some company and she ended up selling it for like a lot of money. And so the house they live in is like a mini mansion. It's like a big house, you know, and she only has one daughter there. And so, you know, like they obviously, they're obviously their lives are not perfect because they lost a child, you know. So obviously that's the sadness to it. And then, you know, they do all this like charity work and different things like that to kind of like obviously help with their, you know, continuing to do good things and all that stuff. So there was that sadness to it. And then, you know, Jackie, you know, Brandy's character, she was like, you know, trying to help out Charlotte, you know, like, oh, so Brandy's character was trying to bring like some joy and, you know, happiness into Heather Graham's character's, you know, life and everything like that. I thought it was okay. Like I said, it wasn't great. There was that sadness with like you finding out the son died, and it was just like okay. It wasn't a great movie. So with this one here, I ended up giving it like a 5 out of 10. It was okay. I mean, there was some like more happier things that happened, and it caused like Charlotte and Jackie's relationship was a bit strained. Like Jackie would still send her like, you know, send her stuff every year, like their family thing, but they never really hung out and everything like that. And so I guess Jackie wanted to kind of be, you know, get closer to Charlotte again, because she's like, you know, we were friends in college and all that stuff. So she wanted her to like, you know, still hang out and everything. And Charlotte basically kind of like pushed her away. And it clearly was like a jealousy thing. Like she was jealous and envious of Jackie's like, you know, personality, or, you know, the way she was, or, you know, how, you know, successful she was and everything like that. So it really kind of like put a strain on like Charlotte and what was his name again? Rob, played by Jason Biggs. Charlotte and Rob's relationship kind of like was a bit strained because of it. And it was, like I said, it was okay. Could have been better. Don't think I would rewatch it again. That's not something I would rewatch. So the next one was called Christmas Island. Now this is, I believe this one was a Hallmark movie. And so obviously, you know, Netflix got how many movies that were Hallmark movies and decided to, you know, obviously have them on their, you know, thing. I don't really watch Hallmark movies. They're kind of cheesy. So this one here, we got the character of Oliver McLeod, played by Andrew Walker. Oh, yeah, Andrew Walker. And then you got Kate Gabriel, played by Rachel Scarston. So it says, when a snowstorm diverts Kate's first private flight en route to Switzerland to Christmas Island in Nova Scotia, she must team up with an air traffic controller named Oliver to secure her dream job as the family's pilot. So the movie was okay. I didn't feel the chemistry between the characters, and that's true. This one here had it to where the woman was like very focused with her career and, you know, piloting around these rich people, you know, and I could not stand the rich people, did not like them for the longest time in the movie. And they started to come around and I was like, okay, they're less of a butthole, you know, but it's like, you got these people who, they didn't come from money, at least I don't think so. They started up their business and then they lost touch with the whole family dynamic because the kids clearly were being neglected, not financially, not obviously not monetarily, but I'd say mentally, you know, because the parents were constantly like working either on their phone or whatever it is, you know, they're constantly working. It's like, you're on fucking vacation and you have to constantly be on the phone. Something's wrong with your business if you need to constantly be on your phone. Something's not working. So I really thought the parents were snobs. And when they land in like Nova Scotia, you know, what they call, you know, there was I think it was called Christmas Island. And I don't think there's a Christmas Island in Nova Scotia. I actually looked up, there's actually a Christmas Island, I think in like Australia, I think. Something like that. But it was okay. Though I'd say the romance between her, the pilot, and the air traffic controller was all right. She basically was she ended up becoming like the babysitter of these kids that weren't even her own because the parents constantly had to like, you know, be on the phone and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, you know, can you like take them out to Christmas places? And I'm like, these people sucked. And it wasn't until like later that like their relationship got different, you know? And I was like, why don't you, I don't know, hire more people who can help run your business so that way you can have a better relationship with your kids? And so that kind of annoyed me. And like I said, I didn't feel the romance between the couple. I just, I don't know. I just didn't really feel it. Because most of the time, it's like, mostly throughout the movie, it was kind of like a love-hate relationship, like where she really didn't care for him. And like she had to warm up to him. And it finally was like toward the end, it was like them getting together. And I was like, I really just didn't believe it, you know, that they could make their relationship work, you know? I didn't think that they would have been able, because she's a pilot. She wants to be a pilot. So she's constantly going to be gone. So it's like, I don't see how the relationship would work out, you know, like I didn't believe it. So yeah, I ended up like, I'd say probably giving this maybe like a 4 out of 10. It was okay. So the next movie was Operation Christmas Drop. And actually, this is a real thing. I did not know this, that there's a real thing called Operation Christmas Drop that the US does. I believe the UK does. I think Australia does it too. There's like multiple countries that do this, where every year you drop off supplies for people who are living on these different islands and stuff. It was a really cute movie. I did enjoy it. So Erica is played by Kat Graham, and you got Andrew played by Alexander Ludwig. He's cute. He's a tall drink of water. So there's a congressional aide, Erica, forgoes family Christmas to travel at her boss's behest. So at a beachside Air Force base, she clashes with Captain Andrew Jantz, who knows her assignment is finding reasons to defund the facility. Yeah. This definitely has to do with like the US government and everything like that. There are different programs they fund that I don't support, and then there are other things that I think they should support that they don't. This one I would say would be one you definitely support, because, you know, as a human, you need to help out other fellow humans. This is what we need to do with each other. Help each other out. So this one here I thought was cute. So she's, like I said, she's a congressional aide. And so she goes to this island to basically audit what they actually do with all of the stuff, you know, that the government, you know, is supplying. And I'm like, fuck that. That is our tax dollars. So to me, I'm like, tax dollars, sure. I could be, you know, I would say, yeah, you should use it for something like that. For other things, no. It depends on what it is. So for this, I would say, yeah, because you're helping other people and all that stuff. And especially because it's not just us, it's other countries doing it too. So for this, I liked it because you had the guy who was the military dude, captain, that he was a captain. And he was basically doing a lot of things on the island that had it to where it was less money that the government was funding. You know, he was doing a lot of, there was a lot of volunteer work that was going on. And there was a lot of different stuff that he would do, like different deals, like, oh, I'll give you this, you give me this, you know, kind of thing, like a trading and all that stuff. So I liked the things that they were doing, you know, on the island to kind of like help, especially because all of the people who were helping were volunteer work. So I love the volunteer aspect to it. I thought it was really great that you have these people who are basically not getting paid and they're doing this every year to help out other people. I thought it was great. And the more she learns about it, the more she likes what was happening. And the thing that kind of irritated me was the congresswoman who was like her above her. She was a bitch. She was a bitch. But it wasn't until the end that it's like, she actually was on a helicopter and watched these drops that she was like, yeah, we're going to keep, you know, funding this. I thought it was a cute movie. But like I said, yeah, definitely, like, there are things in American politics that I don't like, things that government people do that I don't like. So it kind of like brought up a little bit of that, you know, with me, where I'm like, I could see some people not liking this movie because it's more military based, and it talks about like American government and things like that. Different stuff that gets funded, especially different things that I feel like should not be funded from other countries. You know, why are we giving this country and this country money? Why is it always the US that has to constantly save other people's asses? So for me, I was like, there were certain things that I don't think need to be funded. You know, when it comes to like different stuff, it's like, no, let someone else help them. But this one here, I'm like, yeah, I think it's definitely something that we should be doing. And it's been going on since like the 50s. So I'm like, to me, I'm like, yeah, it's been going on this whole time. It's something that's been beneficial to help out other people. Yeah, you know, of course. And so I'm like, it was, you know, a decent romance. I liked the hero. I liked him a lot. And you could see like Kat Graham's character, you know, Erica, that she, you know, started to open up her heart a little bit more and everything like that, you know, and realize that, yeah, you know, helping these people out and giving these people like I kept thinking about, because they talked about like they needed this generator to kind of keep their internet going and all that stuff, the Wi-Fi, so they can the little kids can teach on this island, they can get an education. And I was like, man, this is where like Elon Musk's like he's got that what's it called again, like it's like an internet basically for like people who are in the boonies, like hard to reach areas and stuff like that. I can't remember what it's called again. Starlink? I think it's called Starlink. And I think it's a great thing to have, because there are different areas of the world where you can't get Wi-Fi, regular Wi-Fi. So I think, man, I'm like, that's where his Starlink would have came in handy, you know, to like help out and stuff like that. So these different islands needed like generators and different things like that. And so I liked the different stuff that they did. But yeah, it kind of brought up like different like American government stuff that I'm like, you know, that kind of like annoys me, you know. as somebody who lives here. There are different things that I don't like that the government does. And then there's other things that I'm like, yeah, we should do, you know, to help out. So I thought it was a decent movie. I'd probably give it like a, I didn't write down a rating, but I'd probably give it maybe like a 7 out of 10. I did like the movie. So the next one I watched was Holiday in the Wild. Now this one here, it didn't look like a Christmas movie until like maybe like halfway through or toward the end of the movie that actually looked more like a Christmas movie. So this one here, we got Kristen Davis in it. She plays Kate. And then you got this character, Colin. His name was Colin Moss, but his character was Drew. And then you got Rob Lowe as Derek. Now, Kristen Davis plays basically a housewife. She helped her husband like throughout the years to get his career going, and then they had a child, and you know, was there for her, you know, son and everything. And right as her son leaves for college, like moves, you know, out the door, that's when her husband, Drew, tells her he doesn't love her anymore. He wants a divorce. And I was like, you bastard. Oh, I was not liking the guy. I was like, this guy's a fucking douchebag. You tell this woman, after all these years that she supported you and helped you out and got you going, now you're like, nope, then we're done. And I was like, what a fucking douchebag. So jilted by her husband on the eve of embarking on an African safari in Zambia, I don't know if it's the proper saying, a woman travels to the continent solo and meets an elephant conservationist. And so I gave it like a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I liked the older characters and everything like that. And, you know, Kristen Davis and Rob Lowe are good actors too. So I said I really enjoyed it. She decided to extend her vacation. So she basically decides to go take that trip by herself to Africa and go to these different areas where you could see all the animals out in the wild and everything like that, giraffes and elephants and all that stuff. And she ends up like getting on this plane with Rob Lowe's character. And so he takes her to this area. He ends up stopping off because, you know, like I said, he is an elephant conservationist. And so he ends up getting funding from different organizations and stuff like that for it, so he could help save elephants, which we should do. You know, I'd say every country should help benefit Africa and at least helping to keep these animals safe from poachers. You know, like I hate poachers. Drag them through the streets because I can't stand poachers. They're disgusting individuals that they're going to go and kill an animal for its ivory. Why the fuck do we need ivory? Why do we need it? Do we need it for jewelry? Stupid. So killing an animal, same thing with like there's different cultures in like Asia and all that stuff that they go and they kill dolphins and they kill sharks for like their fins and stuff. I fucking hate that. I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting practice and it should be stopped because you're causing these animals to become extinct for something stupid. So I really liked the movie. I thought it was really well done. I like all of the people who were there to help the elephants. They brought some of these elephants like from the brink of death, you know, and put them back out into the wild and all that stuff. I like all that conservationist stuff because you're saving these animals, even though it's like lions and tigers and all this stuff, all these animals that are wild animals, those terrify me. I would never want to be caught in a room with a lion or a tiger. But do I think these animals should be protected? Absolutely. Because they will become extinct. And so, same thing with polar bears. We need to do everything we can to help protect polar bears because they will become extinct. You know, they're on the brink of like extinction. We should be doing stuff to help, you know? So I thought it was really cute because her character, you know, she doesn't really like him at first, you know, Rob Lowe's character, but then they start to like befriend each other. And she used to be a veterinarian. So she goes and takes the skills that she learned and starts to help out with the animals. But I'd say it basically was like a love letter to these animals, to help protect these animals. There still was a romance to it, you know, but it definitely had more of a that conservationalist type of vibe to it. It's definitely more that than a romance, even though there was a romance in the movie. And I did like, kind of like them befriending each other and different things. Like he would draw and paint. And there was a scene where it's toward the end where she's getting close to like leaving. And because she had extended her vacation as much as she could, but she needed to get back home. Obviously to handle her divorce and everything like that. And it was cute because Rob Lowe's character, Derek, ended up getting her son for Christmas. And so he picked him up in the airplane. And so she spent like Christmas with her son in Africa. And I thought it was really sweet. And so toward the end, he's drawing something. And so she comes up to him and he kind of like covers it. And I was like, oh, I know what he's doing. He's drawing her. I knew he was drawing her because he had developed like feelings for her and he fell for her. So, she's talking to him. And then when she leaves to go back to her like little tent area, he pulls up the thing and you can see he's drawing her. And I was like, oh my God, thought that was so sweet. And when she gets back home, she ends up finding out that the money that was funding the conservation of the elephants was going to go, and so they needed something else to help keep it around longer. So she ends up like enlisting like a lot of her friends and different things like that to help write checks to kind of keep that going in Africa. So I thought it was really sweet. And at the end, she ends up going back to Africa and everything like that. That was really cute. So I gave it like a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed the movie. But I will say, like, it only had like a tiny bit of Christmas in it. It was mainly, like I said, it's mainly a movie about protecting these animals, and all of the things that go with it. It was a really cute story. So number 8, the rest of these are rewatches. Now, I watch this movie every year. I love this movie. This movie never gets boring for me. It's one of my top favorite Sandra Bullock movies. So I ended up rewatching While You Were Sleeping. I think I lost count on how many times I've watched this movie. It's such a cute film. So Sandra Bullock plays Lucy. Bill Pullman plays Jack. And Peter Gallagher plays Peter. So not a hard stretch, him playing Peter. So I said, While You're Sleeping is a 1995 romantic comedy film about Lucy, a young Chicago transit worker who rescues a handsome commuter, Peter, from the path of a speeding subway train. When Peter falls into a coma, his family mistakenly thinks Lucy is his fiancée, and she doesn't correct them. Things get more complicated when she falls for his brother Jack, who's not quite sure that she's who she claims to be. Now, Lucy, is basically by herself. She doesn't have any family. The only family she had growing up was her father. And her father, her and her dad like used to travel around different places. Obviously not travel as much as they wanted to because, he was obviously only had his income and all that stuff. And there were times, obviously, they hit hard patches and all that stuff. Her mother died when she was like very little. So she doesn't have any memories of her mother. She just has these memories of her dad. So they ended up moving to like the Chicago area because there were like these treatments that they could have like, helped with his, obviously he had cancer. And it got to a point where the treatment stopped working and her father was like, I'm done. I'm done fighting this. And he basically, stop doing the treatments. And so like it's been like a year since she's lost her father, so she's a bit lonely and maybe a little bit depressed. And she works at the transit, the subway area, and so she goes and she collects the tokens and all that stuff. Pretty easy job and all that stuff. I'm sure they have to deal with like other things too, that are not as super safe. I mean, you're talking about Chicago. So, yeah, it's not going to be exactly safe there. Same thing with like New York City, LA, a lot of, crappy areas. So, she keeps seeing every day she sees this guy that she has a crush on. And, it's Peter Gallagher's character. And so for Christmas, I think he's heading home for Christmas. And these guys are like messing with him toward like the platform area of the subway. And they end up like, he ends up losing his balance and falling and going unconscious. So she sees it and she runs to it, and she sees a subway coming, a train coming. And so she's telling him like, wake up, sir, And so she ends up saving him, getting off the tracks. And so he is in a coma and ends up getting over to the hospital. And so she is not being allowed in, and then they end up like closing the area, and she kind of like whispers to herself like, I was gonna marry him, like, she's like fell for him just based on his looks, and the nurse overhears it, and she thinks that it's his, that Lucy is his fiance. So she ends up going into the room and sees Peter, and then his family comes in, and they're kind of like this loud, boisterous family. And so they end up misinterpreting it. And the nurse is like, oh, he's, that's Peter's fiance. And they're like, Peter's got a fiance? And so, Lucy's trying to correct it, and, it ends up like not working the way she wants to. And so it's like throughout the movie, she's like, how do I tell these people? How do I tell these lovely people who have like taken me in as a family member? How do I tell them that I'm not Peter's fiance? And so throughout the movie, she's dealing with like that. And then she meets Peter's brother, Jack. And so Jack and her, you could clearly see the attraction between them. And so Jack's like, no, like he could never see his brother Peter with Lucy, because Peter is like more bougie, he likes more of the bougie chicks. And so he's kind of looking at Lucy like, there's no way that my brother would get with her, like, because she would be the type that Jack would like, And so her and Jack befriend each other and start to obviously develop feelings for each other. It's such a great movie. It's so funny. Like, there's different scenes I love in the movie. Like, there's this scene where he's taking her back to her apartment, and the walkway area has like, kind of like black ice where it's like iced over. And so they're trying to like hold each other up like from falling, and they end up falling, and he ends up ripping his jeans and the back area, it's like a pocket area. And so, there's that. And then, and then there's like another scene where one of the Jack and Peter's younger sister, her and her friend end up seeing Lucy at, the train station area. And so she allows them to go in, without paying a toll and everything like that, paying the token. And so the one friend overhears Lucy's one coworker saying, Lucy, are you pregnant? And so sarcastically, Lucy's like, yeah, I'm pregnant, and so the friend hears it, and so she tells the sister, and the sister thinks Lucy's pregnant. So they end up telling Jack, and Jack's like, no, she can't be, she's pregnant. And so he ends up seeing her again, and she's heading off to this party. And so while they're at the party, he's like, does Peter know? Like, basically saying like, does Peter know that you're pregnant? And Lucy has no idea what he's talking about. And so they're talking to each other. And so Lucy starts to drink, and he's like, you shouldn't drink that. And she goes, why not? And he goes, because it's not good for the baby. And everybody hears it. And her boss that worked, that she works for, he's basically there, and he's kind of like gives her advice throughout the movie, like, what, stop lying to these people, like, just tell the truth, tell the truth that, you're not. And she's like, she's like, I'm afraid like it's gonna destroy them. And she's like, because Peter's like in a coma. And so it's throughout this here that you have like these different stuff that happen, and it's just hilarious. I love the humor. I love the banter between Jack and Lucy. And when Peter finally does wake up, and so they're, he doesn't recognize her. And so they're like, oh, he must be in a coma. Or he must have amnesia. That's what it was. He must have amnesia. And so it's hilarious because she's now like, oh my God, like, he's like, he's not an amnesia. He just doesn't know her. And so, and toward the end, like, you could see, like, she's going to marry Peter, and then that doesn't work out between there. And then at the end, there's a happy ending. Every time I watch this movie, I love it. It's one of those, like, ones that it's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I love it. I love Sandra Bullock. She has such comedic timing. She was so great in here. And then I loved the chemistry between her and Bill Pullman. I thought they really did well with each other because Bill Pullman does more comedic stuff too. Like, he has a great sense of humor. And I just loved them together. I thought they looked like such a cute couple, and definitely was a favorite of mine. That I watch every year. I never get tired of this one. I just love, like, she was just so lonely, and her befriending the family and just having this family, and they gave her Christmas gifts barely knowing her, and they were such, like, really nice people. And that, it was a great family. And so they basically adopted Lucy into their family, and I thought it was such a sweet, sweet movie. And it's kind of like what happened with me a little bit. Like, when I started dating my boyfriend, now husband, his family adopted me into their family. So I'm like, I have a sense of, like, a normal family, and so I appreciate, like, having them, as my in-laws and everything like that, because they're good people. They're good people. They're normal. Like, when you compare it to, like, my family, they're normal. Like, they're normal people. So, especially for all the dysfunction that I've dealt with over the years of, like, my family and everything like that. So, yeah, I like my husband's family. They're great, and it just kind of reminds me of that. Like, every year now that I watch it, I'm like, man, it kind of reminds me of, like, me, and I'm adopted into this family, and, you don't feel lonely anymore. You have hope, you're with people who care about you, So yeah, it's a movie that I just love watching every year. It's just a favorite. Such a favorite. I just never I could watch it 2 times a year, I just never get tired of it. It's, definitely 10 out of 10 favorite movie. So, number 9, this one here was The Holiday. Now, this is a rewatch too. I watched this one, like, how many years ago? And I will say, like, I am a Nancy Meyers fan. I do like her films. I don't think she gets enough movies. I don't think she's done enough movies I think she definitely should get more movies, because I do like her as a writer and a director. So The Holiday here we have is, they basically, the two main women do a house swap. So we've got the character of Amanda, played by Cameron Diaz. Iris is played by Kate Winslet. I love Kate Winslet. No matter what she does, I do love her as an actress. I like Cameron Diaz too. She's funny. Miles is played by Jack Black. And then we have Graham is played by Jude Law. Now, Graham and Iris are brother and sister. So Amanda lives in LA and is a movie trailer editor. Iris lives in Surrey. I think it's Surrey. Sorry, UK. And is a journalist. So the two decide to swap houses for 2 weeks at Christmas, both trying to forget their troubled love lives until love finds them anyway. So Amanda, she's a movie trailer editor. She creates movie trailers for movies and all that stuff. I think they get paid pretty good amount of money. I don't know if they get paid as much as, her, because she lives in this fancy house, and I'd say it's probably around the Calabasas area, because there's a lot of Hollywood celebrities that live in, like, Calabasas, Hollywood Hills, things like that. They live in those areas. So I'd say it's probably around the Calabasas area. And so she's a movie trailer editor, and she's breaking up with her boyfriend. It's kind of like been on and off, and they haven't really been, like, super serious. And so she ends up, like, finally getting him to admit that he cheated on her. So she punches him in the face twice, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, good for you, girl. Good for you. The guy's a douchebag. And so um, she's constantly stressed out, constantly is taking like the, like the Pepsid or whatever it is, because she gets like heartburn or whatever it is. And so she's obviously dealing with a lot of stress, and she's like, I need a vacation. And I'm like, yeah, girl, you do. You need a vacation. Go on vacation. And so she decides she's looking up like where to go, and she ends up finding this site that's like house swapping. And she's like, okay, I could do that. And so she ends up like coming across like different houses, and ends up coming across the house that Kate Winslet, her character Iris, owns. And so they decide to swap houses. So Amanda goes to the UK, England, and then I think it's England as far as I know. And Iris goes to California. Now, Iris is a journalist at this like magazine or newspaper, whatever it is. And she's been in love with like, I think her boss or the guy he's like higher up and stuff like that. She's been in love with him for like 2 years. But this fucking douchebag cheated on her when they were dating, and now is engaged to the woman that he cheated on with. But the guy keeps dragging Iris along, and I'm like, dude, stop fucking with her. You're going and you're like, oh, well, she's my friend. If you bump uglies, you ain't friends anymore. So this guy keeps stringing her along. And like, oh, I'm writing a book here. Can you go and like edit my book or look over my book and see if there's... This guy was a total douchebag. And I was like, Iris, you deserve better than this girl. You deserve better. This guy's a douchebag. He don't care about you. If he loved you, he would have married you. So she finally was fed up. She got to the point where she's like, I can't keep doing this to myself. I'm in love with this man. He doesn't love me back. He's engaged. So she decides to leave, and goes to California. So, both of them have to like get used to each other's houses and all that stuff, especially like Kate Winslet goes into that house and she's like, holy crap, like this is a, fabulous house, has a pool. And where Cameron Diaz goes to, her character Amanda goes to the cottage, it's basically a cottage. And it's like, small, small. And she has to kind of like get used to like different stuff. Like obviously there's different things they do in Europe that they don't do here. I think in Europe they have it to where they unplug every time they use something, they unplug it. To where here it's like a lot of times we usually keep stuff plugged in. Like I'd say for my electric kettle, which UK and Australia people, have talked shit enough about people who microwave their water, which I used to do. And you're like, oh, it's not the same. You need an electric kettle. So I finally broke down and got an electric kettle. So my electric kettle, I will keep that plugged in, because we have surge protectors. We have different things like that. So in case of like, any kind of like drop or something like that, the electric goes out, it doesn't ruin our, electronics. As long as you got a surge protector in, you should be fine. So it's new stuff Amanda has to get used to, like driving on the other side of the road, different things like that. So one night she ends up getting a knock at the door for the cottage, and it's Graham, and Graham is Jude Law's character. So they kind of quickly hook up with each other. Like, after the first night, they quickly, like have sex with each other and all that stuff, and kind of like start a relationship from there. Where with Kate Winslet's character, a lot of it was her trying to like get over her stupid ex. And she ends up befriending Jack Black's character, which is, what's his name again? Come on. Miles. I'll say Jack Black does not look like a Miles. He looks like a Jack Black, so Jack is like, he's friends with Amanda's ex, the one she punched in the face a couple times. So he comes to the house because he's looking for like the ex's stuff, and so he ends up befriending Iris, Kate Winslet's character. And so they become friends. He's dating an actress at the time, and I was like, oh no, dude, she is so far beyond you. Like I did not see her like sticking with him, because she just looks like one of those opportunistic actresses where it's like she's only with him so he can help her throughout the industry, and then as soon as she finds someone else, she'll dump him and move on to someone else. It's like social climbers, you know? That's what she looked like. She looked like one of those social climbers. She's looking to be one of those big name actresses. And so I could tell with him, like, she was using him. And I'm like, no, she don't look like the type that would date Jack Black's character, you know? So I'm like, she's just using the guy. So, of course, things don't work out between Miles and his girlfriend. And so he's befriending, hanging out with Kate Winslet's character, Iris more. And Iris, I thought it was really sweet. She befriends this older gentleman that lives like right across from her. And he's an older Hollywood writer. Like, he wrote a lot of movies and scripts and different things like that. And so he talks to her about like classic movies and different things like that. And he ends up getting like this invitation to, I guess it's kind of like a lifetime achievement thing where he gets recognized for all the work he did in Hollywood and everything like that. And he didn't want to go to it because he's like, well, I don't want them to see me like walking around the walker. I don't want to see me like this, and kind of like feel pity for him. And so Kate Winslet, basically, Iris helps him, to kind of like build up a little more of his muscles and everything like that, so he could walk on his own kind of thing and not need like help. She was kind of helping him with that, and then helping him with like hanging out with him, and like, so he wasn't lonely, because he clearly was lonely, you could see, because he lost his wife years ago, and he's by himself now. And so she was there for him, like, almost kind of like an assistant, and I thought it was really sweet. It was a really sweet story with her and him and their friendship and all that stuff. And I kind of was sad, but I'm like, well, then she's moving back to, going back to her country. And I'm like, how much is she going to go and see him? That was really sweet, that she helped him and everything. And then from there, like, her and Jack Black's character, Miles, they start to like form a little bit of friendship that kind of like evolves a little bit from there. I do feel like that out of both of the relationships, both of the romances, the Amanda and Graham's romance was a little bit better than I felt like for Kate Winslet, Iris and Miles. I definitely felt like Cameron Diaz and Jude Law had more chemistry with each other than Kate Winslet and Jack Black. I felt like Jack Black shouldn't have been in this movie. Like, it might have been better if someone else was playing the role. I don't feel like he fit for like romantic comedy, he just doesn't look like the romantic comedy type, it's kind of like an odd role for him. But I'd say like, I felt like Iris's romance was a little bit overshadowed from Amanda's, and then you end up finding out like Graham has children, and so now it's like that's in the mix and everything like that. But I would say it's not a favorite Nancy Meyers movie. I do like it's complicated and something's got to give better. I like more of the older relationships and stuff. But I still enjoyed, The Holiday. I think I gave it like an 8 out of 10. It's pretty good. Like I said, felt like, the other romance wasn't as highlighted as the other one was. So, definitely that was a little uneven. But I still enjoy the movie. And that's probably like the second time I've watched that movie. I don't know if I'd watch it every year. Maybe in like a couple years I'll probably watch it again. But I will say, like, I like the most, I would say for the most part, I pretty much like all of Nancy Meyers' films, There's like one I haven't watched yet. I think it was called The Intern. I haven't watched that one. But I like all the other ones that she's done. And I don't think she gets enough, directing jobs. I think she deserves more, because I do like her as a writer and director. She brings depth to these stories. Some of them are kind of like, some movies out there are kind of, I feel like, one-dimensional and surface level, where I do feel like Nancy Meyers, as a director and writer, she brings depth to her movies, and I would like to see more female directors, writers, things like that. As long as they're good, as long as you're good, and you know what you're doing, I like to see that, So the last one I will talk about is one I watch many, many times. It's something I'll never get tired of. And yes, it is a Christmas movie because it takes place at Christmas. It is a Christmas movie. So it's Die Hard. So we got the characters of John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, and Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman, great actor. Miss him. I miss Alan Rickman. He was such a great actor. I loved him in all kinds of movies, like Galaxy Quest, fucking hilarious in there. Love him in the Harry Potter movies. I loved him in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Loved him in there. I loved him in, I did not like him in Love Actually. That's one movie I did not like him in, was Love Actually, because he was a cheater in there. But I also loved him as, was it Colonel Brandon in Sense and Sensibility? Love him in that movie. I love him in that movie. And him and Emma Thompson worked really well together. They worked really well together as actors. So yeah, Love Actually is definitely not a favorite, I will say, because he's a cheater in there. He's cheating on his wife with another woman. And so it's like, dirtbag. But I love him as a villain. He plays great roles as a villain. Great juicy roles as a villain. Love Alan Rickman, and I miss that man. I miss him. Cancer sucks. So a New York City police officer tries to save his estranged wife and several others taken hostage by terrorists during a Christmas party at the Nakatomi Plaza in Los Angeles. Now, this one's great. It always has like such great lines in it. Like some of my favorite lines of him is, of course, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. So there's always that one. The other one I love too is like he's kind of like going through like this little air ducts area, and he's like, now I know what a TV dinner feels like. So there's that one. And then he's trying to call the police, and they're like, this is a authorized line or whatever it is. Like, if you need the police, you need to call 911. And so he's like, no fucking shit, lady. You think I'm ordering pizza? It has great lines in it. Like he has great like comedic timing. There's several movies I've loved Bruce Willis in, and I'll just say like his diagnosis of like his condition that he has where he's losing his like memories and different functions and stuff like that. That sucks ass, and I feel so bad for him. But great actor. I love, and I love pretty much anything that he's in. And these two actors worked so well together, like off of each other. And it's such an interesting movie because it's like, action. I mean, there are things that obviously don't make sense, like different things, like he would have definitely died in some scenes, but it's a great movie. It's an entertaining movie. It's something like anybody could watch, like male, female, you both can enjoy it, and it's such a great film, like him doing whatever he can to like save his wife, obviously, but to save the other people that are being held hostage by Hans and his crew. I believe all of them were German, or either German or Austrian. And so they obviously were, there for money and everything. But it's a great action flick that takes place during Christmas because he's visiting his wife and his kids. Because he's separated from them. He's living in, he's a New York cop, and so he wants to obviously still make his marriage work, but she's definitely more career driven. She, likes her career that she's doing and everything like that. And so it's causing a little bit of conflict because she obviously got this job working in LA, for this company here, the Nakatomi company. And so, there's that there. But I do love the fact that even though she did have issues with him, she was still trying to protect him, like throughout the movie. She put, her photo down because she was having like problems with like different stuff that they were doing. So she had put the photo down of them, like a family photo. And so when Hans is in her office, she keeps checking to make sure that the photo's down because she doesn't want him to get discovered that, he's a cop and everything like that, because she knows they're going to probably go after him even harder because he's a cop, and, she was also trying to protect herself too, because she had taken on her maiden name, Gennaro, rather than McClane. And so when they find out that his name's John McClane from stupid, what was his name again? What was that character's name again? Ellis. Stupid Ellis. That idiot. Can't stand that character because the dude was a dumbass. He thought he was really good at like selling, and it's like, you're talking to terrorists here, man. Terrorists. They don't give a shit about your sales pitch, you know? And he got himself killed in there. You know, he got shot, but he got himself killed in there because it's like, you're fucking with terrorists. You're talking to these people like you trying to act like you're their friend. They know you're fucking bullshitting, man. And so there were different stuff in here that it was like, obviously John could only do so much to like help them and everything, but he went and he took all those people out, like, you know, took them all out. And so yeah, it's a great movie. It's something that is, you know, a Christmas movie, and it's an action movie. I will call Lethal Weapon a Christmas movie too, because it takes place around Christmas. Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie. No one can change my mind about that. I haven't watched that one yet this year, or I'll say I haven't watched it during Christmas. I did watch it a couple months ago though, because I ended up getting like the box set of all the Lethal Weapon movies. Those ones there, I love all those movies. Same thing, the Die Hard movies, I'll say like, I liked the second one. I thought the second one was all right, but I do like the first one better. I did like the third movie. I liked him with Samuel L. Jackson. I did like them together. I do like that kind of like a duo. Like, he can't always do it by himself. That's why in the first one, I liked the first one because he has like a semi-partner. It's like with, you know, Officer Powell. You know, the actor is the one that played the father in Family Matters. I love that show. When I was growing up, you know, with Steve Urkel and all that stuff, I used to watch that show back in the day. But yeah, I love that, you know, family. It took place, also that story took place in Chicago too. So yeah, great actor. I love his character. You know, with him, like, him knowing, like, he's like, talking to Dwayne Johnson, you know, was I think his name was Dwayne T. Johnson. You know, he was a FBI agent, or not FBI. Well, yeah, it was FBI. And so Powell was like, you know, hey, he's trying to help us, you know, like this guy here, you know, before they knew his name, he's like, he's trying to help us. And they're like, oh, he's getting in the way. And it's like, you buttholes don't know what the fuck you're doing. You know, like, this guy's on the inside. He can give you the inside information, you know, and you're just making it harder for him. And so, you know, I liked the officer, you know, where he was like helping him, and they're like, hey, you know, we're here for you, man. We, you know, it's only so much we can do. But I love their relationship, you know. And so at the end, I always think it's really sweet because, you know, Powell sees him and he's like, is that you, man? And so they hug, and I think I love the ending. It's just such a sweet ending because it's like that friendship they formed, you know, during this time. And so people, like, you know, love to like ship characters and all that stuff, like relationships and everything like that. But I'm like, no, I love a good guy relationship in movies. I love to see that, like, these bros bonding with each other, you know. I like seeing that. So that's a good like buddy cop movie, but except they're a little bit separated from the, you know, obviously in the building and everything like that. And then the second one, he had a small part in it. Like, Officer Powell had a small part in the second one. I really would have liked if he had more of a bigger role in it, because I do like that actor. And so it's a good film. It's like a good, I like I said, I love buddy cop films, or, you know, things like that. And that's why I love the Beverly Hills Cop movies. I love those ones. And I love Lethal Weapon because, you know, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, like, work really well together, you know, when it comes to their dynamics and stuff like that. Those are great movies too. I love a good buddy cop flick. So that's a favorite of mine. I love Die Hard every year. Same thing with like Lethal Weapon. I can watch those movies like constantly. They're great films, you know, good movies. Good shoot 'em up films, bad guys, good guys, you know, and, you know, something that it's enjoyable to watch, you know? Those are enjoyable movies. Where other stuff, you know, you kind of like watch it and you're like, you know, and you don't really want to watch it again. These movies here, it's like they're good movies that you want to watch over and over again. And supposedly they're supposed to do like another Lethal Weapon movie that I think Mel Gibson is going to be directing, but I don't know, because it's like, how are you going to do that? They're kind of getting old, you know, like, no offense to Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, but they're getting older, you know? So I'm like, you know, how much more can you do? But yeah, that's it for this video here. I just wanted to talk about just, you know, the Christmas movies that I've watched this year that I enjoyed. Some of them not so much, you know, but I love different movies during the holidays. Like, there's some other ones that I do want to watch in December. I still need to watch again, like Home Alone 2. I need to buckle down, and it's so funny. People probably be like, what? I have never watched the full movie of It's a Wonderful Life. Never watched the whole thing. I've only seen clips, never sat down and watched it. Every year it's on for Christmas. Every year I don't watch it. So this year I need to buckle down and watch the movie. It's on streaming. You can find it on streaming. I can't remember where it's on, but I maybe HBO. But I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch the movie all the way through, not just clips, but I'm going to watch the movie all the way through and finally watch it. So that's something that is like a Christmas classic. I've watched A Christmas Story over and over again, so I mean, I've seen that movie countless times. So I don't know if I'd want to watch that one again, because I've seen it so many times. And there's other Christmas movies that I'm sure like I'm gonna find this month and watch, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about mainly, you know, these ones here. But yeah, is there a Christmas movie out there that is your favorite? Let me know down in the comment section. And yeah, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. I'll see you all on the next video. All right. Bye.